Run by Autofune 7 Run. And if you can't run then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, don't stop. It's only been an hour since everyone on Earth, as far as I could tell, heard those same words. I was already walking through the park when I heard them, and after seeing what happens, I won't be stopping anytime soon. It's been 2 hours now, I've kept walking, I'm tired but stopping is not an option. Some people tried driving, but the act of getting in a car requires stopping, even for the briefest moment. And as those already driving when they heard the rules soon found out, it's impossible to move indefinitely in a vehicle, especially in a crowded city. Their screams kept me moving. It's been 4 hours now, and I'm exhausted, with the only thing pushing me forward being the fear of what awaits when I stop. And yes, I mean when, proven by plenty of those around me, eventually I'll have to stop. Some have just given up, accepting their fate only to immediately regret the decision, some just couldn't take the screams anymore, and most simply don't see the point of continuing. And with every step I'm starting to become more like the latter. It's been about 6 hours, and for the first time I saw what happens up close. I was walking aimlessly down an alley, trying to get away from the madness, when I saw a young man no more than 16 crying. It didn't even register at first to me until he made eye contact with me. He had stopped moving. His eyes were bloodshot, and not just whites around his pupils, I mean the entirety of his eyes were crimson red. Black tears streamed down his expressionless face, and then he smiled. A wide toothy smile that would have screamed of joy if it wasn't followed by animalistic screams that would give the biggest horror fanatic nightmares. I wish I could say witnessing his dying moments was the most horrific thing to happen to me today, but then it hit me, the realization that I had stopped moving. My House Rules by Flower Prince Avi. My house rules: always take off your shoes when you come in, they don't like dirt. Always say hello. When you enter the house, go straight to your room. Lock your door. If you leave your room, go straight to where you need to go. Do not stop walking. Walk with your head up. Never block your vision. If you hear laughing, ignore it. It isn't there. If you turn on a light, do not turn it back off. They will take care of it. Do not turn off the music, one guest in particular doesn't like the quiet. Do not look into the empty rooms. When you get back to your room, lock the door again immediately. Get your feet off of the floor as fast if possible. If you hear someone calling your name, do not move. If the sun is down, never look out of your bedroom window. Don't check the closets, under the bed or the showers, they like privacy. At 3 a.m. things will start to happen. Do not answer your door. You will hear tapping on your window. When you do, close your eyes. Do not open your eyes. Make sure you go to sleep by 3:12 a.m. Don't forget you live alone. Story by Short Story 1. I regret asking my mother about who my father was. My mother never talked about my father, but she had a stable job and managed to raise me. My mother was never popular with men in the sense of attractiveness and relationships. My mother worked with dead bodies with the police force. She was one of those people who confirmed how a person died. She is amazing at her job. My mother and a few of her other female colleagues who also worked with dead bodies went on a different kind of speed dating to find someone to mate with. I played the elevator game by Complex Situation 20. I played the elevator game. I first read about the elevator ritual from some guy on Reddit. I don't know if he really experienced what he said he did or just made up the whole story, but it made me interested in the subject. I saw a bunch of YouTube videos of people playing it, without any success, and I wanted to try it out myself. I live in an apartment in a 14-story building since a couple of months back. Yesterday I didn't have anyone to hang out with, so I decided that I should try this out to see if this really works. I entered the elevator on the first floor, like the instructions said. I pressed the button for the 4th floor and felt entirely convinced that nothing strange or out of the ordinary would happen. A couple of seconds went by, I was on the 4th floor and pressed the button for the 2nd floor. At this point, I suddenly felt a lot more creeped out. It was almost as if something was warning me to not proceed, and thinking back now after everything that has happened, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I pressed the buttons in the order that the instructions said. Right before I pressed the button for the 5th floor where the woman was supposed to get on, I swear I heard a woman laughing in a creepy way somewhere outside the elevator. It could have been just an ordinary person and my brain making it sound a lot scarier, but that was what I heard. I pressed the button for the 5th floor and waited nervously for what felt like half a minute. I know that I shouldn't even have looked out the door at that point, but I did and I was shocked. In front of me was this famous deceased Hollywood actress that I have had a crush on since I was a teenager. She just looked at me with a warm smile and entered the elevator without taking her eyes off me. I was completely flabbergasted and even forgot about the game for a moment. She was wearing a vintage-looking dark blue skirt suit and white gloves. Her long brown hair was tied neatly in a bun and her long slim legs looked just as good as in the movies. Her face looked just as pretty as ever and she had the same appearance as she did in the late 1950s or early 1960s, I think. I even thought about saying something before I looked in the mirror behind her. Her clothes were molding and her legs and her neck had a greenish-looking tone with scars covering them. The little handbag she was carrying looked tattered, as if it hadn't been used for decades. I turned away and pressed the button for the 1st floor. Just as the instructions said, the elevator started ascending to the 10th floor instead of going down to the first one. She asked me where I was going and I tried ignoring her. The doors opened at the 10th floor and I exited the elevator without turning back. The first thing I noticed was that this hallway was a lot darker than the other ones. I looked out the window and noticed that it was nighttime. When I entered the elevator a couple of minutes before that, it was 3 p.m. and completely light outside. I saw a small red cross on top of one of the buildings, just as the instructions said. I didn't see any people or any lights. Everything was covered in some kind of mist and I couldn't see my legs or feet because of it. Thinking that this was enough and that I should go back, I turned around and noticed that the doors to the elevator were still open and that the lights were on. I heard a faint giggle coming from over there. For a moment I thought that I had no escape, but I decided that I should get on the elevator from another floor. I hurried up the stairs in complete darkness, while having the terrible feeling of someone or something chasing me from behind. I tripped over the stairs when I reached the 11th floor and probably hit my head on a wall. I think I passed out, but the thing is, I woke up on the bed in my apartment. Everything seemed normal. I looked out the window and the sun was shining, people were walking down the street and someone was talking in the apartment next to mine. I knew that I hadn't dreamt the whole thing and that I didn't end the ritual. I was too exhausted and creeped out to do anything though, so I just decided to take a nap and skip the morning lecture. Never in my 20 years of life had I experienced anything like that before. I woke up 2 hours later when my friend texted me, "Where are you?" I told him that I overslept and that I'm on my way. I took a shower and thought about having breakfast, but I wasn't hungry. I left my apartment and immediately noticed an out-of-service sign hanging on the elevator. That wasn't the only thing that was out of the ordinary. Every person, and I mean every single one passing by me, smiled at me. At first I thought they were unusually nice and polite, but I was soon under the impression that something was very wrong. I got a message from my friend, which simply was this following smiley face. I hurried back to my apartment, locked the door and wrote all of this. I don't know if anyone is reading this, but if you do, please help me.
Lol, the exact reason why I don't do these games, lol. Anyways, on to the story.
Run, PT2, by the same person who made Run. My vision went dark, my brain erupted in agony. I felt hot, no burning tears streaming down my face. My life flashed before my eyes, first every happy moment, the most joyous parts of my life. They all came simultaneously, as if a highlight reel was playing of all my greatest memories. And I smiled. I almost forgot about the pain from the migraine and burning tears. Until the bad memories came. Except they weren't memories. I saw the death of loved ones who hadn't died. Not only that. I felt them. I felt every gruesome car crash, gunshot, stab, and punch. Every unspeakable method of death. I witnessed and felt through my loved one's perspective. And I screamed. Just when I felt my world coming to an end, the pain subsided. My vision returned and I was back in the alley. The boy I saw laid there, face steaming, disfigured and lifeless. Then I heard the voice again. Congratulations, you survived. Those words rung through my head like getting hit with a steel baseball bat. But if I knew what was coming next, I would have stopped moving hours ago. After what I'd just seen, I envied the boy. I don't know who or what's in my head. Or how everyone seems to hear it at the same time. But it doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, its word is law. I couldn't help but think how I stopped and survived. Why I survived. Apparently it heard my thoughts, or maybe it was just good timing. Either way, I wish it just remained silent and left the world to forget and recover from this nightmare. The weak and the lucky are gone, all that remains are the strong and the cursed. The voice paused, leaving its words echoing in my head. I heard others in the streets calling for help, yelling about hearing the voice, more crying and praying out loud for it to all be over. I stayed in the alley until it spoke again. Its deep booming voice erupted between my ears, and based on the immediate chaos taking place in the street, everyone else heard it too. Go to the Capitol building of whatever country you're in. You have 7 days, and trust no one spirit pretending to be family by malsd __ bonus puel and mim at end of vid onto the vid a spirit pretending to be my family. This is a true story that happened to me when I was about the age of 9 or 10. Just for the sake of the story, I'ma tell you that I'm a Muslim, and once in a year we have this kind of celebration called Hari Raya, where we wear a certain traditional clothes and visits different relatives the whole day. So, on the first day of Hari Raya, me, my brother and my mom was preparing our clothes for the day. My mom was ironing her clothes in this one room, which I can still see her from the living room where me and my brother was putting on our clothes. I don't quite remember what the situation was specifically during that time, but I do remember that my brother and my mother was awfully quiet. They didn't even speak a word with each other ever since they woke up. This really creeped and weirded me out, but I shrugged it off, thinking that they might just not felt like talking or having a bad mood. So I continue putting on my clothes. As I put my legs in between the sinjang, part of the traditional clothes, out of nowhere, my brother and mother suddenly ran out of the house and downstairs like crazy. The run was so extreme that it's hard to describe. We live in a flat, so there's no reason for them to just sprint out of the house for no reasons. Seeing these, I started to cry, then sprint out as well while screaming out "Mama!" As I jumped from floor to floor, down to I think the 2nd floor, we lived in the 4th floor, then suddenly I heard my mom called for me from upstairs. I was confused, I thought she was down there. I said to myself, "Danish, what are you doing?" I heard it again. At this point I just don't care anymore and ran back upstairs to see my mom and bro waiting for me in the doorstep. I then hugged her as hard as I could while the tears was still pouring down my cheeks. Still until today I wonder why the spirit was trying to take me to the other floor and what might have happened if my mom didn't call out for me. Not trying to make the story more creepier or anything, but legit after that day I was sick, but only for 1 day. I got really sick that my family called Darasi Ifa, which is a really religious group, to get rid of the spirit. I haven't experienced another paranormally activity ever since.
2-sentence horror story time. Look at my father's head on the wall, then I look back at the terrified hunter and sink antlers in his chest. Number 2, I found a old laptop on the beach and decided to boot it up. Never heard of the brand Jumanji. Number 3, do you smell gas? I asked my friend as he struck a match. Number 4, I thought a rat king was a whole bunch of rats tangled together until it opened the door.